everything's a bit depressing, and it's even more so when I heard on earlier last week that Kevin Higgins had passed away, and I was shocked that many people were about this, and very saddened. And I've written, people have been writing lots of tributes to Kevin, who's obviously on this show quite often. So we're going to do a little tribute to Kevin here, and I wanted to start with, I don't know if you've seen it, but I'm going to play it on the show. It's a poem he wrote for Margaret Hodge in the summer. I didn't play it in the summer because I was fearful that I don't know. I was just more fearful then. But this is what this is Kevin talking about Margaret Hodge.
Cometh the hour, cometh the dame, after John Cooper Clarke. The fucking dame is fucking furious and not fucking having it. Fucking up is fucking down, fucking in is fucking out. Fucking master is fucking slave. Fucking Palestine is fucking never. Fucking Goliath is fucking David. Fucking catapult is fucking atom bomb. The fucking wall was fucking built to keep the fucking Arabs off the fucking land, fucking snatched, fucking fair, and fucking square. And if you lot dare say I stalk about the fucking House of Commons spitting words like fucking, or mention the fucking bust of fucking Lenin I fucking bought and fucking placed in Islington Town fucking Hall when I was first elected fucking queen, you'll be hearing from the fucking lawyer my fucking hubby gifted me our first night together. Sincerely fucking yours, Margaret Hodge.
Lots of people have sent tributes in. I do want to play this tribute to Kevin, which comes from Dittany Morgan, who couldn't make it on the show but recorded an interview with me on Friday, and she's got a very unusual tribute to Kevin. Thank you, Dittany, for agreeing to speak about Kevin Higgins. When I saw your tribute to him, it made me smile, and it was lovely to see it. Can you tell me what led you to have this tattoo on your arm? I'll just show your tattoo here. Bother the world with possibility.
Yeah, it's from his poem called Vacating, which I think was written in 2020 in January, where not long after we had a terrible lost Labour election. But I had written down Bother the World with Possibility on an envelope, and I couldn't remember where it's from, and in my head it was being read in an Irish accent. So I messaged. I'm friends with Kevin on Facebook and Twitter, but I just messaged him and said, can you tell me if this was from one of your poems, because I'm imagining it in an Irish accent? And he said, yes, it is. And I said, well, I want to get a tattoo of it, would you mind? And he was just chuffed. He said he was humbled and he couldn't believe it, really. But and so he said, is it all right if we put it on social media as well? And I was actually going to wait probably till this year to get that done, but something in me said, no, let's get this done now. And I'm very pleased I did, because I don't know what's possessed me after I turned 60. Something I seem to be plastering my body with messages in case I'm on a slab myself, and people know what I'm all about. So, but it's just such a lovely line, and I'm just thrilled that I managed to sort of connect with him not long before he died. I didn't know him personally particularly, but obviously I'd come across him in your shows. That's where I'd first heard of him, and I was just, I think his sense, you know, sort of sensational. I just love the poems. I've got a couple of his poetry books here, and recently I bought this, which is just brilliant. I can highly recommend it. Can you see that? It's
Wills and Difficulties.
yeah, being a Marxist poet in the 21st century Ireland, and it's just brilliant. I mean, it's a laugh a minute, and it's just typical Kevin cynicism and all sorts of things, and I can highly recommend it. But so I was a new sort of friend, and he was just so lovely and generous to me and everything like that. But also I'm glad that I mean, he'll be immortalized on my arm now until I go somewhere, wherever we go.
We've got Gerry Potter. He's come on. We got him off the. Eventually, he's here. How are you doing, Gerry?
I'm not too bad. How's yourself, Crispin?
As a poet, you know, how do you see Kevin's work?
Well, the most interesting thing about Kevin is, I think, my mum used to say, she's a sly boots star, and Kevin was an absolute wonderful sly boots of a poet. And what sly boots means in Scouse, which I think it comes from Ireland actually as a phrase, is that fella is full of knowing. That fella is full of knowledge, and he has a way of communicating that knowledge with guile and with cunning. And I don't mean that Kevin was any way sly, in fact, the very opposite of it, but he used an incredible sense of understanding his way of communicating to communicate his poetry. So if you see it in that Margaret Hodge clip, then you will see the smile in his eyes before he tells you the poem. And he did that on stage. I mean, I did his gig maybe, I don't know, 3 times, and we bumped in together along the Wild Atlantic Way a couple more times. And he saw me do a poem called The Queen Sucks Nazi Bleep. And we had this remarkable conversation about what that poem was. And I did it as Chloe Poems, which is a kind of drag persona. And he immediately understood and got that I was a sly boots too, that I was doing something very similar to him. But Kevin, I mean, I was a vaudevillian, and Kevin was an old literary sort of cunning fox. And, you know, but in much the same way, we were both imbued with a desire to spill out our political views in a way that is, you know, well, let's hope it's literary, let's hope it's sort of, you know, all about that, but also entertainingly, but not just to do it literally and entertainingly, but to get the audience on side. And Kevin had this kind of really stoic, a gentle, enormously kind manner, which I think he used like an entertainer might use, but not evilly, not deliberately, cruelly, just well and brilliantly to get whoever the audience was on the side to listen to his poem. And like that Margaret Hodge poem, as you know, Crispin, I have a poem with the word fucking in it a lot. And you have to be able, when you do poetry like that, like The Queen Sucks Nazi, like the Margaret Hodge poem, you have to beforehand, you have to go, right, how do I make you listen to this incredibly intense thing that I'm going to say and that I wholly believe in? And I think what characterized him more than anything else was, well, several things. One, he was an incredibly generous, certainly a very generous host at his gigs in Galway, Over the Edge. And his kindness as a human being, and his profound skill and his ability to use all those things with just the most erudite twinkle, you know, which is rare. You know, it's an incredibly rare set of gifts that he had, and he was able to employ, certainly on stage, certainly in his work, and to be able to get that message, those sometimes quite difficult messages, those sometimes very personal, difficult messages out to an audience. And I really recognized that, and he recognized that in me, one as Chloe Poems and as Gerry, because, you know, you have to be a little bit sneaky sometimes when you're doing big work. I don't mean it, and I don't mean that, like I said before, I don't mean it in a naff way. I mean in a kind of, you know, in a clever way. And he was a kind of very quiet, very still Zen-like master of that particular way of getting an audience. I don't think he ever wanted the audience to like him in that sort of Robbie Williams way. I think he wanted the audience to understand this is where he was, this is why he was, this is why he was saying these things, and he'll do it half smiling and with both his mouth and his eyes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I miss him already, and it's great that you could come on and speak about him as a poet as well, because I don't think I've not heard of a poet speak about him, but it's very interesting. He was good at, like you say, getting a message across, but not being too over the top politically. Is kind of getting there in a mischievous way.
Well, I think he was over the top politically, but he did it in a really beautifully underhand way. Yeah. I think he was able to get an audience to listen to the most personal and sometimes difficult for an audience to hear politics. Masterly, like Obi-Wan. He had this way of sort of, even if, I imagine he didn't have many people who were sort of anti his politics in his audience, but there would have been, and I guarantee you they would have been brought in by his warm yet cunning introductions to he did it then with the Margaret Hodge thing. It was just wonderful what he was doing there, and that was completely him. And you could even if you were diametrically opposed to what he was saying, you would still feel comfortable listening to what he was saying. And and as I said before, it's a rare and intellectual quality, that is.
Mm. Well, thank you very much for coming on. I'm just going to read. This is a very sad to put on the screen, but I think people should see it. It's his last poem that he wrote.
Oh, it's amazing.
I always thought I'd live. It's called. I always thought I'd live to learn how to swim, do the backward butterfly to Olympic standard, and see trickle-down economics deliver at least one, albeit slightly polluted, drop. I always thought I'd live to learn how to drive, win at least one Grand Prix motor racing championship, and see the Democrats legislate for free universal health care. I always thought I'd live to tidy the books off the study floor and see fascists give up stabbing black boys at bus stops, because peaceful protests have eloquently made them see the error of their ways. But the books that made me still decorate the study floor, and I don't have the oxygen to shift them. My consultants are unanimous. My days marching to places like Welling and Trafalgar Square are over. The risk of getting tossed into the back of a police van by over-enthusiastic members of the constabulary is a luxury my lungs can no longer afford. Even holding a placard in my wheelchair would soon have me gasping for breath. And I thought I'd always live. Kevin Higgins.